Lesson number 4 picks up where we left off with lesson number 3 with factoring trinomials. So again, when we're factoring, we've got this sum and product. So if I wanted to factor x squared plus 6x plus 9, I would need two numbers that have a product of 9 and a sum of 6. So if I have a factor that is x squared plus x minus 12, I would need two numbers whose product is negative 12 and sum is 1. So the other thing that we discovered, if the product is positive, such as this positive 9, what are two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6? 3 and 3. Both numbers would then be positive, or both numbers would be negative, depending if the sum was negative. If the product is negative, it means one of the two numbers has to be negative. So two numbers that multiply to a negative 12 and add to a positive 1. So this time, give me all the numbers that multiply to 12. Ignore the negative, just to 12. 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 3 and 4. If one of these numbers is positive and one of these numbers is negative, in order to get that negative 12, I'd find the difference. So the difference between 12 and 1, 11. Difference between 6 and 2, 4. Difference between 3 and 4, 1. So the one that gives me the sum of 1 is the 3 and the 4. To make it a positive 1, make the 4 positive and the 3 negative. If I needed it to be a negative 1, then my 4 would be negative. If my sum was a negative 4, I'd be looking at the 6 and the 2, and I would make the 6 negative. Class example 1 and 2. Factor the following trinomials by inspection. So two numbers that have a sum of negative 1 and a product of negative 12. What are two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to negative 1? Negative 4 and 3. So then my binomial would be x minus 4 and x plus 3. Or x plus 3 and x minus 4. Okay, look at B. What's my sum? What's my product? So what do I know about my two numbers? Besides that one has to be positive and one has to be negative. If I want to get a positive 3, what did you say last time, Tyrone? We said the bigger number had to be, the bigger number this time would have to be positive. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to 3. So remember what I said, the multiplication table becomes your friend. The better that you are at your multiplication facts, the faster these will come. So my two products would be x plus 6 and x minus 3. Okay, so look at C. Sum is negative 7. Product is negative 8. So what are two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 8 and add to give me a negative 7? So if you have to, off to the side, above or below, write down what are the factors of 8. What are all the ways that I can multiply two numbers to give me 8? So I can do 8 and 1, and I could do 4 and 2. So negative 8 and 1 becomes my choice because the difference is negative 7. A minus 8, A plus 1. What would I have for question 2A? What would my sum and product chart look like?
Sum is 6, and product is negative 27.
Sum is 6, product is negative 27. What are my two numbers that multiply to negative 27 and add to positive 6? Yes, there is. Give me two numbers that multiply to 27.
9 and negative 3.
So 9 and 3 to get my 6, negative 3. So A plus 9, A minus 3. B is 2t squared minus 14t plus 20. What do I do first?
Factor
What do I factor out?
2
And what am I left with?
x squared.
Or in this case, t squared. Then what?
Minus 17 plus 10.
So your sum and product chart. Sum is negative 7, product is 10.
Negative 5 and negative 2.
Negative 5 and negative 2. My product was positive this time, so my two factors have to have the same sign. So 2 times what?
Should take away 5.
And
2 take away 2.
okay, look at C. Two numbers that when I multiply them together, I get negative 6. And when I add them, I get negative 3. So give me the ways that I can multiply out to get negative 6.
2 and 3.
2 and 3. And
1 and 6.
1 and 6. If this is negative, that means I'm finding the difference. So if I find the difference between 3 and 2, what do I get? And the difference between 1 and 6? Which means what? Not possible. I cannot find two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 3.
That's so weird because you think it'd be easy because 3 and 6 go into each other.
But it's that sum and product idea. Okay, what do I do for D?
Factor.
What do I factor out?
4x squared.
And what am I left with?
X squared minus 4x minus 5. Yep.
Okay, so sum and product chart. The sum is negative 4, and the product is negative 5. So give me all the ways that I can multiply two numbers to get 5.
5 and 1.
5 and 1. If this is negative, I'm going to be finding the difference between these two numbers. So what's the difference between 5 and 1?
4.
So how do I make it a negative 4?
Negative 5 and 1.
Negative 5 and positive 1. So I get 4x squared and x minus 5 with x plus 4. Okay. Because we haven't thrown enough stuff. If I have the trinomial x squared plus 6x plus 8. If I take x plus 2 times x plus 4 and I expand it, I get my x squared plus 6x plus 8, which means if I work backwards and I start off with x squared plus 6x plus 8, I should get x plus 2, and x plus 4. So if I take now, and instead of having x plus 2, I have x plus 2y and x plus 4y. If I expand this out, I will get x times x, which is x times 4y. 4xy or 4yx, but we're going to put it in alphabetical order. If I take 2y and I multiply it by x, 2xy. And if I take 2y and I multiply it by 4y,
8y squared.
so I get x squared plus 6xy plus 8y squared. So then if I work backwards, it means if I take x squared plus 6xy plus 8y squared and factored it, I would get an x plus 2y and an x plus 4y. What is the difference between this trinomial and the other ones that I've done? There's a variable where?
There's two variables.
There's two variables and there's a variable in the last term. How does it impact factoring my trinomial?
More steps.
More steps?
More thinking.
I think it's just. You just have to remember to write down the variables.
I have to remember, how do I know that the y goes in the second one and not the first?
Alphabetical order.
Pardon?
With the alphabetical order.
Okay, well, actually what I mean is how do I know the binomial is this and not this?
Because you have the square at the beginning of different variable or variable.
Because my first term is just an x squared. What would my first term be in this one?
X squared, y squared.
X squared, y squared. And what would my last term be? It would just be 8, not the 8y squared. Okay? So that's how I know that the y has to go at the end because I need this 8y squared. But my sum and my product, did they change how I find those? Is my sum still the middle term? Is my product still the last term? That's still the coefficients, still the 6 and the 8. So take a look at 3a. My sum and product. The sum is still going to be the middle term of 13. The product is still going to be the last term of 30. 10 and 3 become my two numbers. So when I write my binomial, what would I write?
X plus 10y.
And?
X plus 3y.
So the only thing that changed is I have a y in my second term. Okay, if I look at x squared plus 71xy plus y squared. Sum and product. What's my sum? What's my product? Negative 72. So if my product is negative, that means one of my terms has to be negative. So it means I'm finding the difference in order to get my sum. 1 and which one's negative?
One. No.
The 1 would have to be negative to get a positive 71. So when I write this out in factored form, what would I have? X what?
No, that's enough. 72.
So x plus 72y and
X minus 1y.
do I need to put the 1 in front of the y?
Oh no,
So I'd have just x minus y. Whereas before, I would have had to put that 1 in there. But because I have the variable, I don't need to put the 1 in front of the y. And then in C, we combine everything all together, which means the first thing that I would have to do,
Factor.
what do I factor out?
A. Just
3 or a 3a?
3, no.
Just 3, because I can't take an a out of the last term. So that leaves me with a squared minus 5ab minus what?
84.
So I need two numbers that have a sum of -5 and a product of -84. So start writing out a list of all the numbers that I can multiply together to give me 84. 1 and 84. 2 and what?
42.
And what am I trying to do with these numbers? Am I going to be adding these together or subtracting them? Subtracting them. So I know when I find the difference, I want to get to 5. Okay, can I divide this by 3?
Yeah.
3 times what? 22?
28.
28. Sorry. Can I divide it by 4? 4 and 21. Can't divide it by 5. How do I know I can divide it by 6?
Divided by 2 and 3.
Because I can divide it by 2 and 3.
14.
Well, the difference there is 8. I'm getting closer. Can I divide this by 7? What do I get? And what's the difference?
5.
How do I make it a -5? Make the 12 negative, because then I'd have 7 minus 12 would be the -12. So in order to get that -7 or -5, I'd need the -12. So the 3 still stays. I get an A plus 7B and an A minus 12B. So your questions are 2, 4B and D, 7A and C, 7C, and then 8, 9, 10, and 11.